And one thing I'm not going to do this Black History Month is argue with people over the term African American, especially when you don't even know its true history.
So guys, I don't know why is it that some Africans are saying that they don't claim the Black American thing. I don't know, does this mean that they feel kind of disconnected? Guys, let's listen to these videos and then I'll be back with more analysis, a deep analysis and explanation, by the way. So let's jump in.
It's almost 3 a.m. I will not sleep until I address Black Americans today. Dear Black Americans, I'm begging you in the name of ancestors who didn't leave Africa through one airport. I'm begging you in the name of West and Central African coastline. I'm begging you in the name of map of Africa. I'm begging you in the name of African countries who didn't hire PR teams. I'm begging you in the name of ancestors who didn't leave Africa from one zip code. Please, stop treating Africa like it's a country group project where only Ghana did their homework. Yes, Ghana is beautiful. The history is powerful. The castles are still standing. But use your brain and your passport. Your roots didn't come from one departure gate. They were taken from across West and Central African coasts, from different languages, different cultures, different tribes and kingdoms. Africa is made up of 54 countries, not buy one, take one destination. Every time you guys go to the motherland, you post about Ghana. There are other parts of Africa where history was made, like the Bimbia slave trade port in Cameroon. This site still exists today. History happened in this place. Ancestors, they passed through there too. But it's not trending, it's quiet. Are we trying to erase that part of history? Huh? Have you guys forgotten that your DNA is layered? Your DNA is mixed. Your DNA is regional. Your DNA is continental. I'm not saying don't go to Ghana. I'm saying stop treating Africa like it has only one front door. Learn deeper. Explore wider. Because your story is stronger than one stamp in your passport. They also came from Nigeria, Benin, Cameroon, Ghana, Senegal, and more. Don't visit only one place, only Ghana. Please, after Ghana, explore more. Go and explore. Please, I'm begging you. Because there is history in other places, not just Ghana. Yes, ancestors came from other parts of Africa.
You don't know, if you live in America, if you're a Black person in America, you don't really know what it's like to go to a supermarket, to go to a bank, to go to a mall, and every single person you see is Black.
Right.
You don't know what it's like until you go to a place where everybody is Black, and it's like there's no
tension.
Yeah.
There's no
it's a homogenous. When you're in this homogenous space, it is different.
That's when I was in Nigeria for 2 weeks. I was doing videos like every day, like with my relatives in the back, and everyone was like, because I was making videos where they go, all the comments were like, "You look more happy than I've ever seen. You're like glowing, bro. You're like literally glowing." And then I was like, "Yo, you know what it is?" And it was not me. And I talk about it when I go on stage. Let me tell you something. I'm not putting down white folks, but you weren't around for 2 weeks. Everyone looked like me. The cops would be like, "Hello, sir." The cops were cool. It was just there was no tension.
Code switching.
And then there was you will see some other races of people, but they were insignificant because we were the dominant. But we weren't nasty.
I'm the daughter of refugee and immigrant parents, and I've been in the States for over 15 years now. I think it's going to be over 15 years this year. And I could just tell you that they hate, first of all, happy Black History Month. But the hate that was honestly, the feud between Africans and African Americans, I don't think any of us created that. I truly believe that there's no way that Africans hate. Like, okay, I understand people are like, oh, well, Africans hate, blah, 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 because we didn't get to narrate any of our stories. Mind you, our stories are not narrated by ourselves a lot of the time. And so what we were told, what people are told in let's say even in Africa, is that, oh, African Americans are X, Y, and Z. And then you come to America and they've been told something about us. Why? It is to impede the African Americans from going back because they needed people here. Think about it. And then it's also impeding the Africans and the African Americans from uniting. And how do you do that, you might ask? You recreate an identity that is so repugnant that nobody wants to be a part of it. The Negro from Africa is uncivilized, is animalistic, is yada, yada, yada. And then, if you're lucky, the ones who have been here for hundreds of years will have no desire to return to that which is seen in such a degraded manner. And then you also do it to the other side, and you create stereotypes and you create vile images and things, so that when people come, they have this idea, because mind you, television shows a lot about society. And if your television is broadcasted to everyone else around the world, they can see exactly how you view the black man, or how the black man in America is already living or is perceived. I know this might not be a new discourse, but I'm just saying that we don't hate each other like that. I think it's something that we've been told that, oh, they hate us because of this, we hate y'all because of. It's really not that. I think that some person, you know who I'm talking about, some people they came in spewing hate in between both groups in order that there would not be any unity of the two, and that no one would go back. Because if African Americans knew that their people are loving and kind and want them back, that's who we are. That's African. If we welcome the white man, we're going to welcome our own people back. And if you go home today, people are welcoming. That's who we are. We, like, Africans are not this like, oh, we hate y'all. No, we're very welcoming. We're very warm. That's who we are. And so anything that has been perpetuated or like on our identity, it's not our narrative. It's somebody else who has placed that on to each group, turning them against each other, so that in the States, there's no unity of both groups. The people who act that way, though, again, they're coming in with that mindset of they hate us because, you know, they see us as this. And then, mind you, society has drawn to y'all what Africans look like, the whole stereotypes, to make y'all not want to be a part of something that looks so degradable and so, you know, uninteresting and like so shameful. Okay? That was the whole point. We don't hate each other. I don't think we do. In my opinion, of course.
Well, I do not even use the term African American. I use the term Africans because that's what we are. We are Africans in America. There's nothing American about us. Our history has only been a history of struggle in America. We are the only ethnic group in America who have to shed our blood to make reform. To get the vote, we must shed our blood. To get our children to school, we must shed our blood. To get on a bus and sit where we want, we must shed our blood. To even get in a filthy 5 and 10 cent store, we must shed our blood. So I don't see how we could be American. We're Africans in America struggling against American capitalism. And only until it's destroyed will we enjoy the rights that everyone else is speaking of. Human progress does not stand still. It moves. We came here as Africans. One of the first organizations we had fighting for us is known as the Free African Society. The very first independent organization we had in this country was the church. It was known as the African Methodist Episcopalian Church. So from Africans, our oppressor has changed us to colored, to Negro, to this, to that. We understand it's a step. Coming to black had a powerful point, because the point was that we were oppressed because of this color of our skin, and this was racism. But this fight is not just a fight over the color of the skin. A fight for power is a fight for land. When Mr. Llewellyn speaks about power, he's talking about land. Our land is Africa. America is not our land. It belongs to the American Indians, and we have a right to stand and take a moral struggle with them. The error of the thinking here is that most people think that Africans in America came here just like other immigrant groups did. All other immigrants came to America expecting a better way of life. We started in hell, which was a slave ship, and we're still in hell. This incorrect assumption makes it appear as if we've made a contribution with our culture. Our culture has been trampled upon, not the others. Any contribution we've made to America is the test of the strength of our culture in spite of this oppression. We are Africans, and that's exactly where we're going.
In your view, is that where you end it? Is that where it stops?
The content was African. The label has been changed to confuse us. If we came as Africans, how do we end up as Americans? How do we end up as...
I would beg to differ you that my ancestors came here in a slave boat. They didn't. They came from the island of Jamaica, and they came on their own because they thought it was a better place to be than Jamaica.
How did they get to Jamaica? They came as slaves to Jamaica. I was born in Trinidad. That's where the slave ship dropped them. We're all slaves. Right. We're all slaves.
We can't solve this one.
Jamaica. Who did you decide to drop in Jamaica? The white man dropped you in Jamaica and brought you to Mississippi. Right. So you don't define yourself by the enemy?
No, I define myself as the fighting places where I'm at. Not where I used to be or where I thought I was.
So if you're fighting on a slave ship, so if you're fighting on a slave ship, we fought on the slave ships. Did you call yourself a water?
It's almost 3 a.m. I will not sleep until I address Black America.
I completely understand the sentiment in Daddy Clivert's video, and I really, as a fellow Cameroonian, I always wish that people would come and visit Cameroon. But I just want to address a couple of things in his video. Ghana is one of the only African countries that did its homework. The other African countries did not do their homework. Ghana actually ran a really long PR campaign, and I believe it's still running that campaign, specifically targeting African Americans, inviting them back to Ghana. And let me tell you something, where people are invited, they will always feel more welcome and more likely to travel to. And as a Cameroonian who migrated from Cameroon over 20 years ago, let me tell you something. It is harder for me to come back to Cameroon and visit Cameroon than it is to go to Ghana. The visa process for me to enter back into my own country is harder than visiting Ghana or Senegal, where I don't need a visa. So tell me why people will go and visit places like Cameroon. When you send your passports to the Cameroonian embassy and you don't know what's happening with your passport there, you call, they are so rude. Sometimes they will send you back on time. Sometimes your passport will be there for a month. They will frustrate you to no end. And that's not even addressing the fees that are required to enter Cameroon and the vaccinations that are required to enter Cameroon. Cameroon requires you to have yellow fever, typhoid. You need to go and get all these vaccinations to enter a country where I don't really think it's necessary to have all these vaccinations anymore. And people are more aware these days of what vaccinations do to their bodies. And either they don't want to travel to places where they're going to be getting these crazy diseases, or they don't want to do the vaccinations for hundreds of dollars to visit a country where you have to pay again to get a visa. Then when you get to the airports, you are paying airport tax. When you are leaving the airport, you are paying airport tax. The flights to Cameroon, you must pass through France. There's no direct flight, but there are direct flights from the US to Ghana. Like I said, Ghana has made it easy for African Americans to visit Ghana, which is why they are visiting Ghana. Ghana, South Africa, Kenya, all those places want tourists. They want the Americans to bring their dollars and spend in their country. And where people feel wanted, they will go to. Cameroon is not a place that's making people feel wanted. All the other countries are not getting tourists, are not making people feel wanted. To get from Douala or Yaoundé to the Bimbia that you're talking about, the slave port, how many hours will it take? It's not an easy process. To find transportation in Cameroon as a foreigner, oh my God. In fact, you will not even know the type of car that you're going to get. Then secondly, when the car arrives, is it actually going to take you from point A to point B? In fact, to travel to Cameroon, you must know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody else that can get you first into the country, second from point A to point B. The frustrations are too much. When people ask me, even me as a Cameroonian, if people ask me whether they should come to Cameroon or whether I'm going to take them to Cameroon, I say, my friend, you know what? Before I take you to Cameroon, let me take you to Ghana first. Let me take you to Senegal first. Let me take you to places where I will not be frustrated. On top of that, you are going to be frustrated. The last time I went to Cameroon, the group that I went with, there were 2 African American ladies in the group. Those ladies left. They were supposed to stay for 7 days. They left after 3 or 4 days because every hotel we went to, plumbing was not working. You know, when I tell you frustration of visiting places that are not set up for tourism. So as much as I love my country, as much as I love Cameroon, and I wish people will come and visit Cameroon, me myself, I know that I'm not going to be able to provide them the $5,000 or $10,000 experience, because that's roughly what it costs to come to Cameroon. By the time you buy your ticket, pay your visas, do all those things, you are at least $5,000 out of pocket. By the time people have spent $5,000, the experience does not match up. There are other countries in Africa where you spend a lot less and you get a lot more. And to get into a plane from point A to the place that you're going to, easy transport, easy trip. You just need to enter a plane in New York. Within 10 hours or 6 hours, you are in Ghana. To get to Cameroon, you have to go fight in Paris. Then get on a plane in Paris. Massa, I don't even need to explain. The reason people are not traveling to Cameroon is because Cameroon does not make it easy for people to come. And they are not marketing themselves as a place where people should be going to.
This message is for continental Africans. And I want you to hear me well when I say this. A lot of you make the statement about black people and you not being the same. And I will agree with you on that. Oftentimes that comes in light of you trying to police African Americans on how to deal with the political landscape that we live in, on how we should deal with the history of this nation and the history that this nation has when it comes down to black and brown people. It seems to me that you come from this idealized cultural superiority. You say to us that we don't know where we come from, or that we have no culture, or we have no remembrance of African culture, and you're correct. Because while you have the luxury of still being a part of the continent of Africa and having traditions that were handed down to you from your ancestors who still remained on the continent, we did not. We share ancestry, yes. But the difference between us is that while you were able to maintain yours, we had to learn and adapt and create a culture out of shattered memories and stolen lives and trauma that we inherited through the transatlantic slave trade. So don't come preaching to us about your Africanism, because that's not us. We're not that. We never claimed to be, and we don't want to be. Because even without all of that, and without the authority of being from the continent, we were able to forge our own culture, our own identities, out of what was already taken from us, what was whipped out of us, what was beaten out of us, what was sold out of us. We were able to build ourselves and our culture that now influences the entire world. Now you have the opportunity to stand with us, learn from us, and back us up when it comes down to some of the injustices that happens to us in this nation. But if you choose to come from a place in which you think you are culturally or morally superior because you were able to keep your identities, your cultures, your heritage, and everything else, then we kindly ask you to move out of our ways. Because if you're not fighting with us, you're fighting against us. And we don't need that. So if you can't speak in favor of the people that come from the same people as you, then we ask you to move out of our way. Because we don't need you. We got us. Handle your work and we'll handle ours. That's all I have to say.
And one thing I'm not going to do this Black History Month is argue with people over the term African American, especially when you don't even know its true history. The term African American was used long before the 1980s to describe black people who were descendants of chattel slavery in the United States. Its first documented usage was in 1782 in a sermon that was written to the Pennsylvania government by a self-proclaimed African American. But then people will say, well, no one was really calling themselves African during that time. But that's cap, because during this time period, the Free African Society was first established in 1787 to help other black Americans or African Americans in Philadelphia. Shortly after that, in 1792, the Free African Society created the African Episcopal Church of St. Thomas to give black people a safe place to worship, which then led to the creation of the first African Methodist Episcopal Church, or AME Church, in 1816. And mind you, to this day, AME churches are very prevalent within the black American Christian community. So whether you identify as African American, black American, or an ice cream cone, that's your business, but know your history.
Chris Brown, I'm disappointed in you. What you said, that's not right. And for all the other black Americans who were talking smack, about Bad Bunny's performance last night. I mean, where do y'all get off with that? He deserved that. He deserved to shine. Latinos deserve representation just like everybody else. You know, African American culture, Kendrick did his thing. Mary J. Blige, Beyonce, Rihanna, everybody did their thing from our community. So the Latino community can't shine? No. That's not right. He deserved to shine. They deserve representation, just like everybody else. And some people talking about, I don't even know what he was saying. Well, maybe you should have learned Spanish like I did. I understood what he was saying because I'm fluent in Spanish because I learned it. Maybe, how about that? But no, don't do that. Don't do that. If anybody knows what racism and bigotry and oppression feels like, it's us. Black Americans. We know what it feels like. Don't do that. I don't like that. But anyways, he did a great job. I enjoyed it. It was very touching to me. It was very touching to me. I enjoyed it. So, you know, Bad Bunny, tú hiciste un buen trabajo. You did a good job. And I know the Latino community, they're very proud today. All right, guys, I will see you later. Nos vemos. Te hablo mañana.
Let me seize this opportunity to tell you about marriage from an African perspective. You say that Black Americans just want a divorce from Africans. That's all. Go in peace. It's not that easy. We all know that in America, you can easily get into a marriage. But can you easily get out? Of course not. Also, we all know that you can go to Vegas, meet a fake Elvis Presley or whoever your celebrity of choice is, and within 3 minutes, you're married. That's easy. But can you easily get out? Of course not. Now, from the African perspective, it is difficult to get into a marriage and even more difficult to get out. You following me? In America, you can easily get in, difficult to get out because of all the court proceedings that you have to go through, especially if it's a nasty separation. In Africa, difficult to get in, even more difficult to get out. You know why? Because Africans take marriage very seriously. You cannot just meet somebody and you take them to Vegas and get a 3-minute marriage ceremony and get a certificate or a marriage license and you're done. No. It's a process on the African continent. It is a process, right? It is a family affair. Your uncles, your aunties, your nephews, your nieces, your friends, in fact, your entire village has to know about this marriage, this union, and they have to be present for it to happen. And you don't just take the lady and go away with. No. Respect. It's what we demand from the groom's family to be given to the bride's family. Respect. I'm sure you've heard about bride price. The token. The bride price is the token that the groom's family presents to the bride's family in appreciation of them having raised a beautiful damsel that caught his eyes. All right. And so you don't just show up and say, yes, you know, your bride price, give me the girl. No. There's some poetic presentation that happens. I have been to a few of them, actually several of them. You find a gentleman that comes to get married to a lady in an African culture. He doesn't even talk. Somebody speaks for him. And the person says something like, I was passing by your house. You're addressing the parent of the bride. As I was passing by, I saw this beautiful flower. And I did not want to harvest the flower without permission. So I've come today to ask for your permission. Because I love the look of the flower. And they ask you, who are you? Where are you from? Who are the people who are here with you? These are our own type of background check. We get to know you. Know why? So that when there's an issue in that marriage, the people who came to ask for the lady's hand in marriage, the people who came to pay the bride price, the people who came to make sure that this event goes smoothly, become accountable and responsible to make sure that the union is one of bliss and peace. That's where we are today. Black Americans and Africans. We've had this marriage. However it was done, I wasn't there. You were not there. We are in this marriage. And you're saying, just go in peace? No. Like I said, in America, you can easily get in. Hard to get out. In Africa, it is difficult to get in and difficult to get out. Just like a marriage that brings forth children. You just cannot go in peace. And even if you go in peace, those children that you brought to this world together will forever bind the two of you together. So you and I, African American and African, or Black American and African, there are some things that bind us together that we cannot just go in peace. And just like a marriage from the African continent, the people that were there to officiate, to ask for your hand in marriage, to pay the bride price, they are supposed to be there when things start going rocky, to seek solutions, to ask what's going on, to mediate. That is what I am doing. You cannot just go in peace. I'm not forcing you to stay, no. But I want to understand what is going on. Just like a marriage, we just cannot say, go in peace. We have to talk. Let's vent. Let's pour our hearts out. And I'm so glad people are doing that on this platform. That is where we are. It's not just come and go. No, Vegas, done. Why don't you just go to Vegas and then undo the marriage? You can't. We can't undo the fact that we are together. We have some things that bind us together. African Americans and Africans. We cannot ignore that fact. So this marriage that we are in, before you say go in peace, think about the consequences. You could say there are no consequences, but just like a marriage, there will be consequences. There are offsprings that have been brought forth through this union. I can't even, people tell me, how can this divorce just happen? How? And so let's talk, let's dialogue, let's communicate before we say go in peace. Okay, thank you so much for commenting, for reacting. Thank you to all those who have followed me. Please continue to follow and share and like. I'm here to say, before we say we are divorced, can we talk first? Can we listen to each other? Amicably, for sure. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, amazing people, for listening to the clips. It's now my time to do an analysis about the entire situation, probably how I have understood what's being said. And by now, guys, I want you to know that the story is not about who suffered more, honestly. It's a story about how history separated people who once shared the same origin. And of course, how the separation still speaks today. So around the world or across the world, there are two communities of Black people that look into each other's eyes and ask the same question, but in a different way. And question number one is that, do you see me? And do you understand where I come from? So for many Black Americans, the story begins with a rupture. Names were erased, languages were lost, families were broken apart and sold into a system that lasted for centuries. And imagine what followed was not freedom. It was reconstruction, it was segregation, it was redlining, it was incarceration, and a continuous fight to be recognized as fully human in the land they were forced to build. their identity, I mean the identity of the Africans that were taken to these developed countries as slaves. Their identity was reshaped, and it was shaped in resistance. Culture became survival. Music, language, and style became a way of reclaiming dignity, and you can imagine in a system that is designed to deny you. So across the Atlantic, many Africans tend to tell a different story, but at the end of the day, as much as it's different, it's connected. So number one is that most of the lands of these people, one common thing about this story is that most of them were colonized. I mean, from whichever country that they came from, their borders were redrawn. Remember, before anybody came to Africa, there was no border. But once the colonizers came, they drew a border. They set up a border and said that this one will be called Kenya, that one will be called Uganda, the other one will be called Ghana. This is East Africa, that is West Africa, this is Central Africa. That's what happened. And the worst is that governance was imposed. So in this case, the entire economies were distorted to serve foreign interests. Sad. And after independence, you know what happened? Many countries inherited instability, debt, and global systems that continued to benefit from African weakness. What a sad story. You can imagine what happened is that the names, so guys, despite all this shenanigan happening, names were kept, languages were kept, connection to the land, their ancestry land, and tradition remained intact. So these two histories kinda conflict, one of displacement, one of occupation, and of course it's not nice. But what really happened is that they were born from the same global forces, which is the Mother Africa. So today, as we speak, there are so many voices that are coming out to speak. And those forces echo in conversations that feel personal, emotional, and of course sometimes hostile. So for the Black Americans, they are speaking from a place of historical exclusion in the West. They are actually emphasizing on a unique struggle, a struggle that is defined by race, and in a country that promised freedom while practicing inequality. So in this case, Africans, if you see them, they speak from a place of reawakening, and there is a witness of a growing confidence that is rooted in rejecting old narratives of inferiority and dependency, a determination to define success outside West approval. And of course, if these perspectives are met, there will be friction that will happen. So there are some few words here and there that are being exchanged, accents that are being mocked, pains minimized, and pride that is added into defensiveness. So at the end of the day, this thing that sounds like cultural disagreement is often something deeper. It indicates unresolved trauma meeting unacknowledged resilience. I don't know if you think of it as a loss of identity meeting a preservation of it, either way. So in this case, we will talk about two sides reacting to the same history, but from opposite ends of a wound, the Black Americans and African Americans. So what normally goes unspoken is that this division has always served power. And when Black Americans and Africans argue over legitimacy, suffering, or ownership of identity, attention shifts away from the systems that created those conditions in the first place. So, systems that profited from slavery, colonialism, and continued global inequality. So, as you can see, it's not a story of opposition, it's actually a story of parallel survival. And the question that we should really ask ourselves is not who is more authentic or who endured more. The question is whether recognition can exist without rivalry. Because at the end of the day, understanding does not require sameness, and respect does not erase difference. Thank you, my good people, for watching up to this point. I appreciate your presence. I love you to the moon and back.